Welcome to The Economy Magazine. I'm Benjamin Chong Alfares with the top stories from the world economy. Coming up today, India looks ahead as the opposition wins the elections. And fast food workers demand better pay and job rights. First, the headlines. AT&T agreed to acquire DirecTV for $49 billion, greatly increasing its clout with media companies as video consumption moves online. AT&T will pay $95 per DirecTV share, about $66.50 a share in the form of its own shares, and $28.50 in cash. The deal is AT&T's largest acquisition since its 2006 purchase of Bell South for $85 billion. The combination creates a company with 26 million pay TV subscribers in the U.S., second only to the Comcast and Time Warner Cable merger. Swiss voters rejected the world's highest national minimum wage, striking down a proposal for an hourly rate of $25. Companies and the government opposed the measure, saying it would hurt the economy by increasing joblessness and pushing wages up across the board. In Switzerland, 9 out of 10 full-time workers already earn more than the proposed minimum. But trade unions argued that some 330,000 people in Switzerland earn a wage from which they can't live, given the country's high cost of living. Deutsche Bank sold about 60 million shares to the Qatari royal family as it announced plans to raise 8 billion euros in its second biggest capital increase. Paramount Holding Services, an investment vehicle of Qatar, purchased 1.75 billion euros of shares at 29.20 euros apiece. Germany's biggest bank will raise an additional 6.3 billion euros in a fully underwritten rights offer. The bank said the sale would help it address tighter regulatory requirements, the increased cost of compliance and litigation, and headwinds in the macroeconomic environment. Thailand's economy shrank 0.6% year-on-year in the January to March period as the festering political crisis battered consumer confidence and frightened off tourists. The contraction is the first since the last 3 months of 2011, when the country was hit by massive flooding. Consumer confidence slumped to its lowest level in more than a decade, and tourist arrivals dipped by around 9% in February and March. The National Economic and Social Development Board also cut its growth outlook for 2014, forecasting a smaller expansion of about 2%. Fitch Ratings has warned that it might cut its BBB plus sovereign credit rating for Thailand if the political deadlock continues through the second half of this year. AstraZeneca rejected a £69 billion takeover bid by rival drug maker Pfizer, canceling plans for the largest foreign takeover of a UK company. The £55 per share bid was viewed by key members of AstraZeneca's management team as falling short of properly valuing the company. AstraZeneca said the price would have to be more than £58.85 a share for the board to be able to recommend it to shareholders. A deal would have created the world's biggest drug maker, but is now unlikely as Pfizer only has until May 26th to bid again by UK takeover law. AstraZeneca's stock dropped as much as 15%, its biggest intraday decline since October 1997. As Narendra Modi takes the helm of the world's biggest democracy, it remains to be seen how he will tackle the complaints that led to his landslide victory in India. Here's Daniel Roth with the details.
India's mammoth 6-week election process came to a close last week, declaring pro-business Hindu nationalist Narendra Modi the new prime minister. He is wielding a majority government, and it's a first in 3 decades for the world's largest democracy. Modi won by portraying himself as the voice of development and a shift away from the corrupt status quo.
The people of this country have given their verdict, and that verdict tells us that we need to take India forward.
Modi's adversaries warn he may be the source of heightened tensions in the majority Hindu country that is also home to 150 million Muslims. He's been accused of doing nothing during anti-Muslim riots that left 1,000 dead 12 years ago in Gujarat, where he was the chief minister. Nevertheless, the successful campaign took aim at the abysmal economic record of the Congress Party, declaring intentions to deliver new jobs, further development, and lessen corruption in government.
Another turn in the history of India.
The longtime ruling Congress Party was humiliated in these elections after years of economic unrest.
The Congress Party has done pretty badly. There's a lot for us to think about. And as Vice President of the party, I hold myself responsible for what has happened.
Indeed, as the Congress Party departs from power, India is in the midst of stagflation. Growth has slowed to 4.9% from 9% in 2012, and Modi will have his work cut out for him. More than 50% of Indians are under the age of 25, and millions of jobs have to be created for people entering the labor force. Modi may focus on large infrastructure projects as part of a push to industrialize the country and create jobs. But there is doubt that the incoming prime minister can live up to expectations.
Can he essentially put India's economy back on the rails? Can he create jobs? Can he rebuild infrastructure? And I'm reasonably optimistic that he'll be able to fulfill some of the expectations. I don't think anybody could possibly fulfill all of the expectations that have been raised.
There is room to grow. Currently, India's manufacturing sector accounts for only 14% of GDP, compared to China's 32%. Still, that growth will have to be tempered by environmental realities if it is to be sustainable, especially if urbanization continues to progress. It's a lesson China is currently learning. As Indians prepare for new leadership, that leadership must now work to deliver on their promise of a new era for the 20% of the world's population that call India home.
And we're joined now by Yoav Karni, a Delhi-based columnist for the Israeli daily Financial Globes. Yoav Karni, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, fantastic.
Greetings,
thanks for joining us. So,
my pleasure.
Indians massively voted for Narendra Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party out of disgust, perhaps, if you could call it that, for the sickly economic conditions in India. Is Narendra Modi really the right man for the job?
Oh, well, this is certainly a belief shared very strongly by a lopsided majority of 31% of all Indian voters. Let's bear it in mind that indeed the BJP has won an absolute majority of seats in parliament, but that is out of 31% of the votes. One of the marvels of the first past the post electoral system. But there is certainly a huge amount of optimism, euphoria really, in the business community, people in the know, overseas investors, that India is facing now a rupturous change. It got stuck. It got stuck very badly after years in which it was lionized as the next China, or in any event, a galloping Asian tiger. And in that sense, almost anyone outside of the Congress party would have been greeted with great relief. But then, of course, Modi has some other tributes that perhaps we could talk about.
So, I mean, will Modi and will the BJP be able to affect the kind of change, though, that the Indians are seeking? I mean, we understand that the business community is excited, but will he be able to actually go against the rampant corruption we've seen and also improve the living conditions for Indians?
Well, you really need to be almost an Indian deity to successfully mount a campaign against corruption. And in fact, Modi is increasingly perceived, certainly by his supporters, as a latter-day Indian deity. But look, he prides himself on great economic success in his home state of Gujarat, which is, in Indian terms, a middle-sized state in northwestern India, where he has been chief minister for 12 years. And Gujarat is successful, and Gujarat has been a magnet for international investment, local investment, very much unlike the rest of good parts of the rest of India. People say in response to that, the look, Gujaratis have been business-minded for the last 1,000 years, well before Modi. So you can't really credit Modi with the success of Gujarat. But obviously, he has been an able manager, and the business community are enraptured with him. They truly adore him. They believe that if he were to be the prime minister, he would do some basic stuff, such as regulatory reform. There's been an interesting opinion piece in one of the local papers by two prominent Indian economists from American universities, MIT and Harvard, and they argued that given how young India is in the emergent market world, the things that it has to do in order to unleash speedy growth for the foreseeable future are very basic. It doesn't need to reinvent the wheel. It just has to reform regulations, and of itself, it will grow exponentially.
Mr. Carney, how long have you been in India, and what exactly is your position there?
I'm not involved politically. I was not a candidate for the Indian Lok Sabha. I'm just a mesmerized outside spectator. I love politics. I've covered election campaigns the world over. I took myself to India about a year and a half ago so as to follow this extraordinary carnival of politics and electioneering. And I'm still salivating over it.
And where do you think India is headed, considering that you've been there for a year and a half and you've seen things change? Where is India headed now?
It will certainly have a greater sense of purpose. But the level of expectation is almost frighteningly high, with a terrible job deficit. India having to manufacture 11 new million jobs a year. Too many young people now place their entire hopes on a single individual. It will be terribly difficult to bring about. And on top of that, this individual is a very divisive one. He has galvanized a religious majority, or a plurality at least, often while talking or insinuating against minorities. And look, Benjamin, there is one major difference here in attitudes between the rising right and the defeated left, or left of center, which is about the ethos of India, the idea of India, as they call it. India was conceived as a society aspiring to reach equality. Now, it has never come close to that, but this is still the founding ethos. The defeated government has spent an enormous amount of money and political capital on entitlement programs, humongous subsidies for the poor. The new man in power believes that India should push for growth relentlessly at the expense of entitlements. In such a diverse and complex society, 800 million of its people living in the rural areas in abject poverty, would this work? Or in 5 years' time, perhaps we'll find out that the voter has changed their minds. The voters have changed their mind.
Okay. Well, Jaffa Carney, thank you very much for joining us from Delhi. Very interesting words about India after the election.
My pleasure, Benjamin.
Thank you. Fast food workers from around the world staged a massive strike in the push for wage increases and more job rights, including the right to unionize. But while strikes and protests in New York drew a big crowd, fast food protests in other parts of the world were more limited. More in this report.
The banners and chants were clear as fast food workers and others in solidarity took to the streets last Thursday. The Fight for 15 aims to lift the minimum wage from the current $7.25 an hour to $15 per hour. This, American fast food workers say, would constitute a livable wage.
You don't have enough money for food. You have to go to the stores and look for specials. You can't buy clothes. I haven't bought clothes for 10 years.
And for the first time, the movement initiated in the U.S. in 2012 transcended U.S. borders, spreading to more than 30 countries.
We're sending a message to the fast food industry that fast food workers are fed up with the poverty wages. They're fed up with the irregular hours. They're fed up with being disrespected on the job. And, you know, today is the first worldwide strike for fast food workers, and we're starting to fight the industry on an international level.
Indeed, the fast food sector has one of the most extreme pay differentials. On average, CEOs make 1,200 times that of the average fast food worker.
Well, these are multi-billion-dollar companies, and listen, we know they here to make money. We busting our butts each and every day, and they making money off of our backs. So now we're going to stand up strong so they can't ride our backs no more.
Since 2000, executive compensation at fast food chains has quadrupled, while that of workers rose only 0.3%. These are growing inequalities that are clearly causing growing unrest.
And if you liked our report on India and on the fast food worker strikes around the world, stay with us because we're definitely going to be spending more time researching them and giving you more information on what's happening both in India as well as with fast food workers and their will to want to unionize around the world. Thank you very much for watching us. We are going to be here again tomorrow. Benjamin Chong Alfares. Send us your comments via Twitter, Facebook, the website, of course, and join us again.